Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I hope you're enjoying this series regarding the true Mecca. And before I get into part 3, I just wanted to mention something I forgot to mention in the last one, which is the notion of the Prophet Muhammad's house and his grave, because there was a sheikh that was actually responsible for guarding the house of the Prophet, apparently where he had lived. And this other famous sheikh called Muhammad al-Hassan al-Didu, al-Shinqiti, he's a memorizer of hadith, asked him a question: did you hear or see anything? And obviously the older man, he's saying, well, I do believe that there are angels in that place. And the reason why he says that is because he believes he heard voices, okay, in that house that was allegedly where the Prophet Muhammad lived. Not to mention his grave, alleged grave. And what's very interesting is I could explain it in a different way. Because if you think about it, what he describes is electrical power had hit him. Okay, his body starts to shake, so convulsions, and there's an electrical power that hits him when he's talking to him as if he's there. And think about what that means. I mean, when we talk about voices, people's bodies shaking sporadically, electrical impulses throughout the body. If you've ever watched someone, which I hope you don't, who has been affected by devils, jinns, shayateen, these are all very common phenomena that you can observe. One of the ways that we can examine the unseen world manifesting in humanity. So I just thought that was interesting that he assumed that those were angels, but that's not the only possibility. And there could be the notion of these places receiving so much shirk just for their existence, just for all the people that call upon the Prophet's name in worship. And really what's going on there is, it's like a haunted place. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's really interesting. It's in Arabic but translated to English. The other thing I wanted to mention is this concept of Kabbalah. So this is the Hebrew spelling of the word Kabbalah. And notice that they define it as something to do with reception, acceptance, a receipt of something. Jewish mysticism of oral tradition. And for whatever reason, a lot of people online will relate this to the Kaaba of Allah. So they'll just put the portmanteau of those numbers, of those words, and they'll say Kaaba Allah, so Kabbalah, that's what it means. But if you notice here, this gives it away because it's spelled with a qaf. And as you can tell, there is no ayn that you would expect with Kaaba. So what we really have here rendered into Arabic is Qabla, Qabla. Not Kaaba, not Kaaba Allah. It's Qabla. It's from this trilateral root. And what do you know? It has the same basic meaning. To be for acceptance, even to kiss, to make contact with something. Receptivity, receipt, predisposition, acceptance, reception, receiving. So this is where the word Qibla comes from. And, well, let's just get right into it, into part 3. And what we notice is that when we look at the Kaaba, Mecca, Hajj, the first thing that opens our eyes is these two pictures right now. This is a Saudi artist that made this exhibit known as magnetism. So he basically put an iron cube to represent the Kaaba, and he put iron filings around it, magnetized to represent the people doing tawaf around the Kaaba. Why of all things would someone use magnetism to showcase this? I agree, it looks very interesting, but really there's so many different other ways to represent this artistically. And I would suggest the reason why is because there is a knowledge that the actual place, the true Kaaba, the true Mecca, it is very much represented as the epitome of this magnetism effect. So, if you're not aware, on old maps, we have a totally different world represented for us. And one such representation that's been erased from our maps, from our quote-unquote globes, is this idea that we have a magnetic black rock in the center of our world. Remember in part 1 we were talking about the centrality of true Mecca? Well, now we're going to talk about the Qibla, the magnetic hold this place actually has on us, and what are the consequences of this place existing, and why do they have a black stone that everyone kisses, qabla, in Saudi Arabia today. So one of the most interesting things about the Qibla is they will tell you that, well, in order to pray, you have to face this house. In order to face this house, you have to actually figure out what the Qibla is, which is, they say, the direction of prayer. And this man is one of the first people, if not the first, to actually document how to do that. This is Al-Ashraf Umar II, a Rasulid Sultan in Yemen. And what's interesting is he wrote the first description of a magnetic compass for determining the Qibla. In a treatise about astrolabes and sundials, he included information on the construction of a compass bowl. He uses the compass to determine the north point and the Qibla towards Mecca. This is the first mention of a compass in a medieval Islamic scientific text used as a Qibla indicator. Okay, although he wasn't the first to do this. So what's interesting about this diagram is, we see that the north magnetic pole is the most important first step anyone can do to understand where Mecca is. That's number one. If we move on, we see that the legacy of this man, he actually has a hotel in Mecca in Saudi Arabia today named after them, and they even put it right openly in everyone's eyes that it's this many kilometers away from the Black Stone. The Black Stone is going to be a very important thing to look at in this part, because this is actually why this place has everything to do with magnetism. And so the question is, if you don't have a compass, how do you find the Qibla? Most people don't even use a compass today because there are smartphone apps that do all the work for you. Well, what's interesting is if you look up at the night sky and there's not enough light pollution, you can actually use the stars. And Allah talks about the stars being landmarks, and that basically we are guided by these stars. So what's very interesting is that there is a particular star called the North Star, and funny enough, Muslim sailors actually nicknamed this North Star the Qibla. That's what they called it. It's not the path to the Qibla, it's not an angle of the Qibla. They called this North Star the Qibla. So that should be profound enough to know that there is no other steps involved. That North Star signifies the point of attraction of true Mecca. And basically, if you want to find it, you find Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, and you trace a line to the Qibla, the North Star. Again, we would call this Polaris, but that's what Muslim sailors called it, the Qibla. This is nowhere near Saudi Arabia. And obviously, they would tell you, well, that's not all they would do. They would have, some way of figuring out, based on where they are, in which major city, what angle they have to face during prayer, based upon where they determine the North Pole to be. But there's none of that here, because if you're on the open sea, how do you know what angle to use? How do you know where to pray on the ship? You don't. I mean, anywhere on land that's not a major city, it's going to be a guess at best where what angle to face based on the northern magnetic needle. So some people will say, well, is the Kaaba really at the center of the earth geographically? Of course not. These are just nonsensical arguments, very absurd. All of our land masses are floating on the oceanic waters, and the idea that the Kaaba is the center of the earth is an unnecessary hypothesis. But what you're going to find is that actually a lot of scholars will disagree with this person, because everybody has known a common epithet for Mecca is actually center of the earth. And the Kaaba, obviously in the center of Mecca. So when we look at this concept, this is known as an inertial plane of a toroidal field. Okay? Whatever cosmological view you have of the world, it's irrelevant, because what you're going to see is that the Qibla assumes this type of conformation. And basically what we have in the world is these toroidal fields generated. This is a process you can do experimentally called sonoluminescence, by which light is made from sound waves in a liquid. Notice, sound is the thing that creates. Just like Allah, He says, kun fayakun, and the worlds come into being. So this causes a bubble that implodes in a process called cavitation, and this produces light. This cavitation is all around a center. It's all around a pole, a magnetic pole. This center is what we observe as Mecca. It can only be this place, and I'm going to show you so much from mythology, from Islamic scholars, that show you that what we've been sold is nothing close to what nature shows us that Allah designed. There's a lot to unpack here, so I just wanted to produce this interesting idea here. So let's move on to the Qibla. They tell us the Qibla means direction. We're going to show you that's nowhere near the case. There are many other words for direction. Qibla is not one of them. So the method that we use today is basically we always need a compass. Always. We have a Qibla compass, which is, it's just a compass at the end of the day. The Qibla part comes from these Qibla tables. Okay, and these are things people have figured out through, mathematics based on the positioning of major cities around the world where Mecca would be relative to the North Magnetic Pole. But now mobile apps do all the work for you, so most people don't even think that they need a compass to first determine where Mecca is. Okay, so the Qibla was changed officially in Islamic history from Jerusalem to Mecca. This is when the Prophet Muhammad was in Medina. And by the way, I don't condone these places at all for any historical narrative of Prophet Muhammad's life. But it's just to show you what we're told so we can move on from this. And the place, that event where that happened was in Medina, allegedly, in this masjid called Masjid al-Qiblatain, the mosque of the two Qiblas. What's interesting too is Ibn Hisham's biography of the Prophet Muhammad. He says that Muhammad prayed in such a way as to face the Kaaba and Jerusalem simultaneously. I ask you, how is that even possible? They're in opposite directions, basically. Jerusalem is more towards the northwest. Okay. Medina is more towards the south. Mecca is more towards the south relative to Medina. So the significance of this is huge, because in every mosque we have this archway that's symbolically created called the mihrab, and we're going to show you what that means. The mihrab is basically where people face to pray, and it's supposed to point to Mecca and Saudi Arabia today. The term mihrab is attested only once in the Quran, which is interesting because that's not the case, mihrab, but it refers to a place of prayer of the Israelites rather than a part of a mosque. So the Quran is actually showing you a different definition than what we have today. That just shows you people have adopted something that doesn't actually factor in what the Quran says. So one of the oldest mosques in Egypt, the Mosque of Amr ibn al-As in Fustat, Egypt, is known to have been built originally without a mihrab. So how do they know what they prayed? Well, clearly this is not necessary because one of the oldest mosques has been there, but since then one has been added. And so interestingly is we have this term of Ayn al-Kaaba. And they translate this to standing so as to face the Kaaba head on. But I know what that means. That means something to do with springs, right? There's supposed to be springs in Mecca. And I already showed you in part 2 that the springs in Mecca could not possibly accommodate the people of Saudi Arabia, let alone the world, with Zamzam water. But anyway, what happens is the further away you are from Saudi Arabia, let's just say you're a Muslim in Indonesia, the world's most populated Muslim country. Just 1 degree deviation causes more than 100-kilometer shift. Okay? That's major because we're supposed to be praying to this thing. Our prayers are based on this being accurate. And the further you are away from it, the more harder it is to do this. Which tells you that there's something wrong with the location. It shouldn't be hard like that. So the way they determine this is they use this theoretical basis of a great circle. So we're told that we're living on the surface of a ball, okay? And so there's no straight lines on a ball. So they have to invent a straight line by doing a cross-sectional plane, right? Through the middle of this ball, through the kind of semi-sphere of the ball. And only then do they use spherical trigonometry to wrap it around the surface of the ball, okay? But it's really only calculating the distance if it were even, a plane. And we know that it's not even a perfect sphere, that's what we're told. So really, it just becomes way more complicated the more that you take from these academic official narratives. Because Allah made everything very simple to understand. Let me just show you, I think, yeah, so the first mathematical methods developed in the early 9th century, this is very close to the beginning of Islam, we're told, were approximate solutions to the mathematical problem using a flat map or 2-dimensional geometry. And they tell us these were all inexact because the earth is actually spherical. Muslims use various instruments to find the Qibla direction when not near a mosque. And the most common one is a compass. It's a magnetic compass. The list of tables is only going to be valid if you're in a city that people know, like New York City or Jakarta. Qibla compasses have existed since around 1300. Okay, so it becomes even more ridiculous too when you have fake pictures like this of the ISS. This is a fake picture. This doesn't exist. The ISS orbits the Earth at high speed, and apparently they had a sheikh who requested to figure out from the National Fatwa Council of Malaysia where the Qibla is. Okay, he's already high in the sky, and nobody could tell him where to pray to. I mean, he would have to be pointing directly below his head, or in some kind of an angle, which is uncomfortable, because nobody has even thought of this idea of praying in space. It's not possible. It's not. I mean, this is a mockery of religion. And so let's look at what Masjid al-Qiblatain. This is where people believe the Qibla was changed in Medina. And basically, this is one of the few mosques in the world to have 2 mihrabs. So this is one pointing towards Jerusalem, one pointing towards Mecca. Except in 1987, a certain Saudi king completely tore down and rebuilt the whole mosque. So what you're looking at today is not even the original mosque where the Prophet Muhammad was told to change the prayer direction. Okay? And now, of course, you only have the one prayer niche facing Mecca, with the one facing Jerusalem removed. So there's a lot of sketchy history when it comes to Islam, and we don't know how many renovations these places. This is in Medina. I didn't even make a video on Medina. But clearly, nothing is as it seems. We're told everything's in its original state. But we know of even pre-modern renovations by Suleiman the Magnificent, who reconstructed the mosque as well. Not to mention, obviously, in modern times. So, something that's interesting too is, I forgot to mention, the Muslims used to actually pray exactly like the Jews. That's what we're told. Okay? They used to pray in the direction of the Jews. And the direction of the Jews is called mitzrach. So, mitzrach is the Hebrew word for qibla. Like, it means basically the same concept that we know of qibla today. And that word literally means in Hebrew, east. This is the direction the Jews pray when they pray towards Jerusalem. And some famous scholars like Maimonides would make it a point that the synagogue, the doors should face east. Some other texts would add that, maybe don't face exactly east, maybe turn a bit to the south to avoid the semblance of worshipping the sun. Okay? This is a cardinal point of the sunrise, right? So you can see that there's something strange going on because the Jews in Medina are not going to pray east towards Jerusalem. And I get it, that they did face different ways. But the very fact of the matter is this word for qibla in Hebrew means east, this prayer direction. Doesn't Allah say that righteousness is not that you turn your head to the east or the west? To Him belong the east and the west. So wherever you face, there is the countenance of Allah. If we have any prayer direction today, whether it's towards Jerusalem, towards Mecca and Saudi Arabia, any prayer direction, what we see is it's always something partially east or west, sometimes completely east or west, tracking the movement of the sun. And what's interesting is Christians have the same idea because they have this concept called ad orientem, the direction of prayer, meaning to the east. Okay? Masonic temples are also situated facing east. Like the Jews, Muslims use Jerusalem as their qibla. But the thing is that this doesn't make sense if Jerusalem is in its current location, because that would mean Muslims would have forgotten the original qibla, the original, let's just call it prayer direction. I'm going to show you what that means in actuality, of Ibrahim. And this is what the Prophet Muhammad was bringing back. He was bringing back this original prescribed ritual. But no, back in that time, this was forgotten. And people have faced east, mitzrach. Okay, just like the Christians today, the Jews today. Everybody follows the path of the sun. Okay. And when you look at, for example, what direction is defined as in Arabic, you don't get qibla. Qibla is not even one of the many words. The word for direction in Arabic is attijah. Okay? And I don't see qibla here anywhere. That would be very easy to find. But what we do see is al-mihrab. Okay? This is what we're told means the prayer niche in the mosque. Has nothing to do with this because it has to do with war. Okay? Mihrab has something to do with with war. I mean, what's very interesting, I never understood why would Zechariah not pray in the masjid. Okay, why would he find Miriam in the mihrab, not the masjid, right? Is this not where he's yusalli fil mihrab? Why is it not even in the masjid? We're all told he's not sallying in the mihrab. That's supposed to be a prayer niche, right? How could he do that today? He can't, because all the meanings have been redefined for us, right? To fit a certain narrative. Okay. So the idea is, we don't know what this actually means, And when you go back to it, what you find is this word has something to do with like a protected place, okay? Mihrab, an instrument of war. In other languages like Ethiopian, South Arabian, we have words like sanctuary. Remember, sanctuary, right? Related to haram, okay? Haram, harama, haraba. If you watch some of my other videos, I'll show you that there's letters that are paired together that have to be related. We call this the prayer chamber today, but in actuality, this is known as the sanctum sanctorum, the holy of holies of the temple, the honorable sitting place, the chief of all the rooms of the most important building at that time. Okay, this sounds like something way more significant than just a mosque with a place to pray towards. Okay, now let's get to qibla. Have you noticed that if you look at the word qibli, this refers to something southerly, southern, qibli, Upper Egypt. Al-wajh al-qibli, qibli in classical Arabic, meaning a wind that's southerly. Okay. Something that's southerly is coming from the south, right? So look at this. We're told that qibla means the direction to which Muslims pray towards the Kaaba in Mecca. Jerusalem is called Qibli al-Awla, right? The first Qibla. But look at this. It shows us Qibla, focus of attention, target of all eyes, ideal, goal sought after and aspired to, object of widespread interest, focus of attention. Now here we go again, recess in a mosque, prayer niche. But then it says center of interest, attraction. A tourist attraction is called Qiblat as-Suyyah. Literally, the attraction of tourism. Something to do with attracting. And we know in the natural world, the most prominent force that's attractive is magnetism, right? The center of interest. It's not just a prayer niche. Clearly, it's not a direction even. It's a focal point of the worlds, a pivot point people do tawaf around. And hence, when we look at the word for qibla in the Quran, what we see is references to a central community. Okay? Why would he mention that? Upon mankind you will be witnesses. The messenger is a witness. We have not made the Qibla you used to be upon, except to make evident who follows the messenger, who turns back upon his heels. Indeed, that was a great test except upon who he has guided. Why would this be such a great test? This is something we're supposed to do all the time. We're supposed to know this very easily. Well, because majority of people don't understand. This is what you get from the Quranic idea. Most of humanity doesn't understand. Most of humanity are astray. And it's just very interesting. There's nothing implying a direction at all. It's just a focal point. And we don't even know if it's prayer. Look at this one. It says, what has turned them away? To Allah belongs the east and the west. Why is Allah invoked to mention that to him belongs the east and the west when the foolish people say, what has turned them away from their qibla that they used to face? He guides whom he wills to a straight path. We'll get into what the straight path is in a later part, but I just want to highlight that this doesn't mean prayer direction. Okay? And the word qabl, before, is related. Min qablihim, min qabl. Why is the word before in time related to qibla? Well, that's where we all come from. And I'm going to show you that there's something about accepting. There's a place where things are accepted. Okay? Let me show you this. Let's say we don't have a compass. We don't have a smartphone. We don't have any idea And I already told you that you can use the star when you're sailing. But what if it's a cloudy day? What if you want to find north during the daytime? The stars are not out during the daylight. There are so many ways you can find out how to find magnetic north in the daytime, at nighttime, when it's cloudy, if you have a watch. And my personal favorite is looking at moss. You just go into the forest and notice that the moss will always thrive in damp conditions. So basically, in the northern hemisphere, the sun moves east to west, and the north facing gets the least amount of sun, so that'll be the dampest area. So the moss will point north, and it's so funny because the moss is usually green almost all the time, and this color is going to be so important when we talk about Mecca. It's the middle color of the spectrum of visible light. So you don't need actually a compass, you just need access to nature. And that would make a lot of sense because all of the natural world knows where magnetic north is. And I'm going to show you exactly why. The most common example is birds. Birds are mentioned praising, exalting Allah all the time. When they migrate, they know exactly the same spot to go every time because they follow the magnetic compass in their bodies. And they know exactly how to figure out where they are in time and space. This is the confirmation of the Kaaba today. Notice it's not even actually a cube. I already mentioned that Kaaba doesn't even mean cube. So of course the reconstruction to symbolize the Kaaba doesn't even have the cubic proportions. But I thought that the Kaaba is supposed to be in Saudi Arabia some kind of a ordinal compass for the worlds. All the world descend into Mecca, right? All the people, they go into Mecca for pilgrimage. And it's not even aligned with the 4 cardinal directions. That's such a missed opportunity. And the idea is that in Islamic, pre-Islamic folklore, the walls of the Kaaba were supposed to be associated with the 4 cardinal winds. But they're not today. This is to me a big problem because this is supposed to be a sign for the worlds of Allah's supremacy. The classical compass winds in the ancient Mediterranean world were the names of the points of geographic direction and orientation. They're also called wind roses, okay? We're going to get into this as well. And usually there's 4 or 8 or 16 or 32, sometimes 12 points by which people always understood the cardinal directions. In the Hebrew Bible, the 4 cardinal directions are mentioned all the time. In the Quran, they're mentioned very often. In fact, the directions are so important that if you don't understand what directions mean in the Quran, you will miss so much knowledge as to what Allah is talking about. And these directions are known to be associated with winds. Okay? Notice, in the Quran we have the story of Sulaiman. He was given charge over the winds. Where do you think those winds are coming from? Where are they blowing from? In particular, the north wind. We're going to talk about too, the place of the north wind. So these 4 winds, one of them was called Boreas, and this is the north wind. But they had obviously a wind for each direction. Okay? So when we look at history of magnetism, people understanding magnetic fields, how magnets work, we have to understand this term called lodestone. This is the first discovery of magnetism, was from mineral magnetite of iron. Iron is an entire chapter in the Quran, and funny enough, it's the actual beginning of the second half of the chapters in the Quran, chapter 57. And when this is magnetized in its natural state, it's known as a lodestone. This is how all the compasses were made, okay? Using mineral magnetite, naturally occurring magnetized pieces of iron ore. And it somehow looks black. Most of the time it looks black, exactly like we have in the Kaaba reconstructed today. People would make all kinds of different, all around the world, even the Yemeni astronomer I mentioned in the beginning. He wrote the first description of this magnetic compass to determine the Qibla. Not direction of prayer. It's the focal point of the world. That's what the Qibla is. Okay? Then we have this person called Peter the Pilgrim. All right? He's the first person to document the properties and effects of the lodestone. What's funny is that his name has pilgrim in there. Okay? And Peter, if you're not aware, Peter means stone. Stone of the pilgrim. Okay? We go on a pilgrimage to Mecca to kiss the black stone. Right? This is the first person to talk of magnetism. He's the first person to emphasize bipolarity of magnets and to use the term pole or polis as an analogy. It's actually not an analogy, but I'm going to show you that in a different part. He describes the effect of one magnet on another, and when a magnet is divided in the middle, it becomes two magnets. Okay? So this history is inexorably related to Rupes nigra. I'll get into what that is, but basically that's Latin for black stone. And look where it's placed. It's placed in the center of the world, in the Arctic Circle. And there's a lost continent there, and we're going to get into what that is. This is what everything has been pointing towards, quite literally. When clouds prevent sailors from seeing sun or stars, they take a needle and they press its point on a magnetic stone. Okay, this is how they find out. Then they transfix it through a piece of straw and place it in a basin of water. This is how you can magnetize anything metallic in nature. The stone is then moved round the basin faster until the needle which follows it is whirling swiftly. At that point, the stone is suddenly snatched away and the needle points towards Stella Maris. Stella Maris is the old name for Polaris, the pole star, what Muslim sailors called the Qibla. And this was even associated with the Virgin Mary because, well, we'll have to get into another part, but the story of Maryam is completely different than what we've been told. But anyway, this is what we're talking about. When we talk about the Qibla, there is a place on earth that has been removed from our maps that has a mountain of black stone. A mountain of it. And this is what is called Rupes nigra in Latin. Black stone. It's in the North Pole. That's where it is. In the North Pole, where all the compasses point. Everybody has a conscious understanding of north. They will always be able to find north. North will always be, in the same way for everyone, the most accurate possible direction for everyone. Its existence is mentioned and can be found throughout many old maps and legends, like legends of the former peoples that the disbelievers accuse the believers of believing in, even though that's where all the truth of the religion is actually stored, because they don't want you to understand. The documentaries they sell you as facts are all fictional. The things that they put as fiction have way more truth, way more in line with the Quran, because this is what the disbelievers say. They're the ones that say, oh, Shu'aib, oh, Musa, oh, Hud, oh, Salih. What are these? These are legends of the former peoples. No, this is the truth from your Lord. These were all universally accepted as real locations by all cultures. I'm going to show you a little bit of that. The bridge between the realms. The Vedics called this land Paradesha. Doesn't that sound like paradise? You ever wonder where Firdaus is? We've never been told this. Paradesha literally is used in the sense of the word at the North Pole. The Bible, it's called Eden. This location points to so much of what we've been missing from the Quran. And the Quran addresses all of these things. One of these things, you're going to find out Mount Meru is actually in the Quran. It's just called in its Arabic name. This is a distorted version of the Arabic name. So in all Hindu, Jain, Buddhist cosmology, the center of all the physical, metaphysical, spiritual universes, the three realms, Triloka, is Mount Meru. And nobody can find where Mount Meru is. They just give symbolic representations like this temple. They make symbolic representations like Muslims. We have a symbolic representation of the same place in Saudi Arabia called the Kaaba. And it has a black stone even, just to remind you what the real place is supposed to look like. Etymologically, Meru means high. The proper name is Meru, to which is added su, which means most excellent or sublime high place. Okay? It's a mountain. They refer to it as part of the cosmic ocean, meaning heavenly, along with several other statements that describe it in geographically vague terms, such as the sun, along with all the planets, circle this mountain. Of course, the focal point of the worlds is going to have all of the celestial bodies making tawaf around it. We don't need to have, the sun doesn't even, nothing does that in Saudi Arabia today. I'm sorry to say, but it has to be in the center of the 4 cardinal directions. Shatr al-Masjid al-Haram, I already mentioned, means bisect the worlds, fundamentally. The sun and the moon revolve around Mount Meru, and as the sun passes behind it, it becomes nighttime. The mountain has 4 faces. Each one is made of a different material. These are all precious metals like gold, crystal, lapis lazuli, ruby. The entire universe is represented by this pillar of the world. In Islam, we have pillars, right? You ever wonder why they call them pillars of Islam? We're supposed to believe in pillars, but they're very, very big pillars. And it's located at the heart of 6 mountain ranges, symbolizing a lotus. 6 mountain ranges, really. So this would be the 7th one in the center, wouldn't it? The concept of a holy mountain is surrounded by various circles incorporated into ancient Hindu temple architecture. This is what they do. They can't go to the place, just like us, so they have to put symbolic representations of it to remind them of where their home is, the home of mankind. Okay? When we look at the axis mundi, this is the world axis around which everything rotates, the pivot point, the focal point, the qibla, the center of the world. A lot of times there's a tree mentioned as well there that I alluded to in the first part as a connection between heaven and earth. This is a real place. The concept of a navel of the worlds, which is the whole basis of part 1 of this series. All of these things are valid in the mythology of describing features of this place. A vine, a stalk, a tree, a mountain, a column, a tower, a ladder, a staircase. Chapter 70 of the Qur'an is Al-Ma'arij, the ascending staircase. A maypole, a cross. There's a crucifixion mentioned in the Qur'an. A steeple, a rope, a totem pole, a pillar, a spire. There are pillars of the earth as well. The minarets of mosques today allude to this. Obelisks as well. Obelisks are also a way of showing this axis mundi. Every inhabited region, every microcosm has a center, and that center is the most sacred place of all. For example, in China, one of the largest countries in the world, the name of China, Zhongguo, in Chinese means middle nation. Okay? Why would they use these words? These are Islamic Quranic terms. All right? Because the deen encompasses everybody, everything, the worlds. It's assigned to the worlds. Everyone has this idea. You have Jacob's ladder on the Temple Mount. For Christians, it's the cross on Mount Calvary. Okay? Ancient Mesopotamia, between rivers, there's 4 rivers on this flat river plain. Hindu temples are made on high mountains. You have pyramids with staircases in Mexico. You have Amerindian temples on the top of caves or subterranean springs, which are thought to be openings to the underworld. Okay? The ancient Armenians had an important mountain they thought was the center of the universe. The ancient Greeks had a center of the universe of a Mount Olympus, as well as the navel stone of the worlds, the button, Masjid al-Haram, the button Mekkatin, right? Christianity has the Mount of Olives and Calvary. Islam has the Kaaba. Islam is not exempt from this tradition. In Islam, we know, the scholars say that this is the first building on earth. The black stone came from the heavens. Okay, this is just traditions passed down. Mecca's nickname is center of the world. Mount Meru is thought to be the home of Shiva. Mount Kailash, most sacred place, as a gateway to Shambhala. Doesn't that sound like Sham, Allah? Sham is supposed to be the northern part. It means north. Shimal, Sham, it means north. And Allah, it's telling you the north belongs to God. The Shinto, we have the Ise shrine. I'll tell you that Japan knows all about Isa in the Quran. You can find it everywhere in Japan. These altars, omphaloi, world centers. Omphaloi means navels, by the way. This is what is used as the world center. Omphaloi, navels. With an altar or place of prayer as the axis. Okay? Every temple has a center, a sacred mountain, a pagoda structure linking heaven and earth. This is why this is the only place it can be. A steeple in a church, a minaret in a mosque, a mandala of two-dimensional space analogous to the world center. In classical elements, the axis mundi corresponds to ether, the quintessence, the fifth element. The image of the cosmic tree provides an axis symbol as well. There's a fig tree mentioned in the Quran. That fig tree is where the Buddha got enlightenment. It's called the Bodhi tree. He's named after it, actually, the fig tree. And we also have Mesoamerican world tree, Norse mythology world tree. We have Germanic peoples, before Christianity, used the Christmas tree as the center of the worlds. Okay? Before Christianity. We have also the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Two trees. At least two trees in that place. In the Garden of Eden. Okay? Jannat Adnin. Right? The human body can also express the symbol of the world axis. You just stand up and you can see the same design. The same designer design things in a similar way. Are you a better creation, or is the heavens and the earth a better creation? Identifying that we have something of the heavens and the earth in us, just like it is based on the same type of template. It's just not the same. The chakra system, disciplines like yoga and tai chi, begin from the premise that the human body can act as its own axis mundi. Do we not have a heart? Do we not have a navel? Do we not have an electromagnetic field? Of course, we have all of these things. So this is why we have the same creator designing everything. Did you know that traditional Arab homes are also laid out as a square surrounding a central fountain that evokes a primordial garden paradise? Why is it a square? There's 4 directions. There's a spring in the center. People try to preserve the memory of this place as much as possible. This is the whole concept behind feng shui in Asian cultures, because they're trying to organize their living space to remind them of the real one, the home that we've been cast out of, basically, the whole prevention from the sacred, from the Masjid al-Haram. We've been prevented from it, okay? And we see even in fairy tales as well. Jacob's Ladder, Jack and the Beanstalk, Rapunzel, the tree of Odin, the staff of Hermes, the staff of Asclepius, the caduceus that you see all over on every ambulance, hospital building, medical profession. This is actually representing this axis, this pole. And believe me, there is a pole there. That's why they call it the North Pole. It's a rod. It's a connection between heaven and earth and everything. But the point of it is, it's not where they tell us. It's in the center. And that's why when you talk about Maru, the Jews and the Christians, they have a version called Moriah. Okay, Muriya. Notice, this is Marwa. Arabs call this place Marwa, even though it's in Jerusalem. Wait a second, I thought that Marwa is near the Kaaba in Mecca. Okay? Well, evidently there's 2 Marwas created, which is what should be apparent to you right now, is that Haram al-Sharif in Jerusalem and Marwa are reflections of Mecca, because these places were split from the actual one place. All right? I'm going to show you with time why that's the case. Mount Moriah is where Ibrahim took his son. It's where Suleiman has the temple. Okay? This is where they think the temple is going to be rebuilt. Nothing could be further from the truth. How do we know if it's not already rebuilt? Because it's not in this place. This is Marwa. I'm not saying it's in Jerusalem. I'm saying that Jerusalem has the same deception as Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And what does Muriya mean? Muriah, what does it mean? It means high land, exactly like Meru. It's a mountain, a mount, a tur that I mentioned in part 1 of this series. Okay? It's related to these messengers. Ibrahim, Dawood, Sulaiman, it's all related to them. Right? So when you look at Marwa, this is related to this. Okay? They call them hills, but I already mentioned that there's 7 hills. And basically, when you make tawaf, notice that you would be making tawaf around the Kaaba and Safa and Marwa. I'll have to talk about Safa and Marwa in another time because that would be better elaborated in another part. But just to show you what people used to say openly, okay? This is from John B. Sheldon, and he released this in a newspaper in 1800s. Discovery of the North Pole and the polar gulf surrounding it. Okay, there's a ship, there's a large mountain, some kind of dome, conical structure here in the center of our reality. Rupus nigra, magnetic stone. And they call the north a navigational tar pit because basically the closer you get to this magnetism, the source of it, your compass will go crazy. You will have all kinds of calamities befall you, and I'll show you some examples of that in our literature. The magnetic north is the point at the end of every compass. This is why this pilgrimage is so hard, because if you were to actually undertake it, there are a lot of serious precautions you need to account for. Let me show you what Islamic scholars have said about the Kaaba. Somebody asked, is there any textual proof that Makkah al-Mukarramah is the center of the earth? Okay. The Qur'an isn't enough for them, so they have to look to their scholars, right? We're known to be a middle nation, originally. We're known that this is a blessed book that has been sent down, confirming what came before it. To even warn the mother of towns. I already mentioned the mother of towns implies that all the towns are around Mecca. The scholars would say, like, this is from, Ar-Raghib al-Asfahani. al-Qura means it is the origin of all cities on earth. From it, the earth spread out. Hence, it is the center of the earth. Some of the scholars said that its name Mecca indicates that the center and the middle of the earth. Makkah. It means to Mecca, the center of the earth. Tamukku, whoever did wrong therein, it would crush him and destroy him. I wonder how that would happen. Al-Khalil said, because it is the center of the earth, like the marrow which is in the middle of the bone. It was narrated by Ibn Abbas that the Prophet ﷺ said, the first spot to be created on earth was the location of the house, which they call the Kaaba. Then the earth spread out from there. And the first mountain that Allah placed on the surface of the earth was Abu Qubais. Then the mountain spread out from there. Then the earth spread out from there. This is in Al-Bayhaqi. Okay, in Al-Firdaus. Notice the title of that book. Look at what An-Mannawi says in Fayd al-Qadir. The earth spread out from there on all sides. It is the center of the earth and its pole. Even mentions pole, which in Arabic is qutb. It's in the actual Arabic, qutb, that word, pole. Ali ibn Abdul Aziz told us, so and so and so and so and so and so told us, the first mountain to be placed on earth was Abu Qubais. You can't honestly tell me Saudi Arabia has any of the original mountains. There are mountains far bigger than the ones in Saudi Arabia, okay? In lands way more blessed as well. The first spot to be created of the earth was the site of the house from which the earth spread out. Doesn't it make sense the earth would be spread out, as Allah says, from the center? Spread out from the center. They used to think that the center of the earth was in Makkah al-Mukarramah. Allah created the house 2,000 years before the earth spread out from beneath it. Ibn Abbas said the house was placed over the water on 4 pillars 2,000 years before this world was created. Then the earth spread out from beneath the house. The Kaaba was created 2,000 years before the earth. How could it be created before it when it is part of the earth? He said, there was an island on the water on which there were two angels who glorified Allah by night and day for 2,000 years. Then, when Allah wanted to create the earth, He spread it out from there and made it in the middle of the earth. Island, okay? If it isn't already clear, Jerusalem is just a split version. It's just a Jewish Christian mythology, okay? In the same way that Mecca today is a mythology of the real place. Mythology just means stories. It doesn't mean if it's true or false. It's just stories, okay? And the rock of Bayt al-Maqdis, Jerusalem, was shown to be by Qatada, a center of the earth. Remember, the foundation stone in part 1, the navel of the earth. It's the foundation stone where the earth was spread. So if you read Arabian Nights, it's very interesting because these are officially works of fiction, but you'll find that this theme is very prominent in many of these Arabian Nights, okay? This is supposed to be around the Abbasid era, okay? So notice this, there's a captain of a ship, okay? And they're going to on a voyage to this place. What do they say? We slept not that night, and in the morning we found ourselves much nearer the lodestone mountain. Remember we talked about lodestones? The naturally occurring deposits of iron that are magnetic, from which compasses are made that are used to find the Qibla. Black stones. This is a mountain of it. The waters drave us with a violent send. When the ships were close under its lee, they opened and the nails flew out, and all the iron in them sought the magnet mountain, and clove to it like a network, so that by the end of the day we were all struggling in the waves round about the mountain. Some of us were saved, but more were drowned, and even those who had escaped knew not one another. So stupefied were they by the beating of the billows and the raving of the winds. Winds, okay? As for me, O my lady, Allah be His name exalted, preserved my life that I might suffer whatso He willed to me of hardship, misfortune, calamity. For I scrambled upon a plank from one of the ships, and the wind and waters threw it at the feet of the mountain. This is a very deadly place when it comes to its voyage to this place, because they're on a ship made of wood and nails, and all the nails came out of the ship. It stuck to the mountain. It went. Their ship was collapsed from the magnetism of this mountain, and even the winds are so strong they can lift planks of wood. Okay. It says here, He will row thee for a space of 10 days, till He bring thee to certain islands, called the Islands of Safety. Notice, what do we get? What land is safe in the Quran? Safe and secure. What land? Al-Balad al-Amin. And thence thou shalt easily reach a port, and find those who will convey thee to thy native land. The boatman rowed on with me through the first day and the second, till I caught sight of the islands of safety, whereat I joyed with exceeding joy and stress of gladness, exclaimed, Allah, Allah, in the name of Allah, there is no God but the God, and Allah is Almighty. Notice, he finds the island, and the first thing he says is, La ilaha illallah. What does that tell you? It tells you this place is the ultimate proof that Allah exists, and that He is the only God of the worlds. Moreover, this is from another story in Arabian Nights. There's hundreds of them. She encircled the city with all its streets and garths, and she turned by her granary the 4 islands into 4 mountains. Why do we have 4 islands again? Just like the cosmology of the Eastern traditions. Just like the Northern Island. Here's another story. The 531st night. Okay? Because there's 1001, I think. O Queen, deign account me to what befell Bulakiya as regards his return to Egypt. She replied, Know, O Hasib, that when he parted from Jansha, he fared on nights and days till he came to a great sea. So he anointed his feet with the juice of the magical herb, and walking over the face of the waters, sped onwards till he came to an island, again an island, abounding in trees and springs and fruits, as it were the Garden of Eden. Again, we're told this is a paradisical place, the original paradise. He landed and walked about till he saw an immense tree. How immense is this tree, you ask? Its leaves are as big as the sails of a ship. Imagine how big that tree is. Okay? So he went up to the tree and found under it a table spread with all manner of meats. Where is the table spread mentioned in the Quran? Isn't that a whole chapter called the table spread? Chapter 5. Whilst on a branch of the branches sat a great bird, whose body was of pearls and leek green emeralds. Okay? Precious metals, again, just like in the stories of Maru, right? Marwa. And then when Bulukiya landed and walked about the island, he found therein many marvels. The bird whose body was of pearls and emeralds and precious metals. These are all metals mentioned in paradise, in Jannah. Gold, pearls, right? Silk. It's mentioned silk as well. Quoth the bird, what does the bird say? I am one of the birds of Eden, and followed Adam when Allah Almighty cast him out thence. And know, O my brother, that Allah also cast out with him 4 leaves of the trees of the garden to cover his nakedness withal. Now you can understand why Adam and his wife would use the leaves of paradise in the Quran to cover themselves, because those leaves are huge. Some are as big as the sails of a ship. Okay? You can make a lot of fabric with that material. We've never seen trees like that at all. And there are many trees mentioned in the Quran. Nobody has ever pointed to any of them in our world, which tells you that we're not allowed to go to the correct place. There's an entire book about this notion that paradise, what the Sanskrit language calls Paradesha, was found in the cradle of the human race at the North Pole. This is a study by William Fairfield Warren. He went through all of the mythologies, all the Bible, all the different traditions around the world. This is what he concluded like over 100 years ago. Okay? It's a very interesting book, for free, available online. And this brings us to Hyperborea. Remember I told you that the compass is based on the 4 winds. Okay? And the 4 winds blow according to the 4 cardinal directions. Well, one of those winds is from the north, and that one is called Boreas. Okay? That's why this place has been known in Greek as Hyperborea. Okay? Beyond the north wind, the farther northern part of the world. And these people called Hyperboreans were believed to inhabit a very sunny, temperate, divinely blessed land. They lived north of the Riphaean mountains, which shielded them from the effects of the cold north wind. That's how you can have a paradise beyond this Arctic desert. Okay? The tundra is just like a desert. It's just a cold desert, right? So they put the fabricated one in a desert as well. And of course, there's a black stone from the heavens in the middle. The island, as the account continues, is situated in the north and is inhabited by Hyperboreans, who are called by that name because their home is beyond the point whence the north wind blows. The island is both fertile, productive of every crop, and has an unusually temperate climate. Not too hot, not too cold. Every single type of crop, every type of plant, fruit, every type of cattle or creature. There's a magnificent temple there as well. It's just spherical in shape, okay? Like a lot of the domes of our mosques. And if you see that there's also pillars erected, there's a North Sea. People were reported to live, 1,000 years in complete happiness, complete perfect picture health. They were a lot taller as well. They were 3 meters tall. That's like 10 feet. So a lot of people tried to conquer them, but they realized that no, there's no way we can conquer them. This is actually a safe place. It's actually protected. The people actually benefit from the blessings. Umrah actually has life extension qualities there because people live 1,000 years. Okay, this is all from the traditions around the world. This is why people obviously worship their ancestors nowadays, because they knew that they were a lot taller, they lived a lot longer, Allah talks about this as well. The people in the past were better than you. They accomplished more. They were more healthy. They were more intelligent. Okay, it doesn't mean that they were better in a spiritual way. It doesn't mean that it's easier for them to attain salvation. I'm just saying that what we're told is we're the epitome of the evolutionary model. No, we're actually on the downhill turn. We're basically going downhill from the first peoples. Okay, they were believed to be giant kings 10 feet tall who ruled Hyperborea. They were all descended from a specific line of this city. Okay, even Friedrich Nietzsche, the famous author, he referred to his readers as Hyperboreans, because he would say in his book The Antichrist, okay, he said, "We are Hyperboreans. We know well enough how remote our place is." Remote. He quoted the Roman poet Pindar and added, "Beyond the north, beyond the ice, beyond death, our life, our happiness." That's what he says. Even other ethnologists like Karl Penka, he talks about the Arctic home in the Vedas, the original home of mankind. Not just Indo-Europeans, all peoples have a common origin from this central place. We made you a central people, a central species, central race, central nation, a central community. This is where the golden age of civilization and spirituality culminates in. Okay, and they still use these terms today. If you think this is all nonsense, Atlantis, Hyperborea, if you think it's just fantasy, fine. People that are in high positions of power, like Alexander Dugin, they still use these terms. He's a political theorist. He's close to Vladimir Putin, and he uses the terms Atlanteans and Hyperboreans. Okay, obviously they know more, and I'll show you what Russia thinks about this place as well. So this is what people understood. This is not a perfect map, mind you. This is a understanding, some kind of a reconstruction or attempt at reconstructing this map of what this place is. And inshallah, I'm hoping to reconstruct something along those lines of what you can expect to see if we ever get there. I believe we are going to be, well, I can't really divulge too much already. I'm getting ahead of myself, but basically this black rock in Latin on these maps is called Rupus Nigra. This is located at the magnetic North Pole, the North Pole itself. Okay, there's a whirlpool there, in the midst of these 4 islands where there are 4 rivers diverging from it. It's like a funnel, exactly like that picture of John B. Sheldon. And right under the pole, there's a bare rock in the midst of the sea, 33 French miles in circumference, and it's all of magnetic stone. Okay, we're never told about anything magnetic regarding the black stone in the Kaaba. But that's what they show us. They show us these pictures like this because they know. They know very well what it means. We have these words in the Quran, the hijarati, the stones. Their hearts became like stones, something in the center of our understanding. When someone says you have a black heart, it's like you're saying your heart's like a stone. It's black, a black stone. Al-Hajara, this is the story of Moses. Musa, he striked his staff on the stone. Where is this stone? Is that in Mecca? Is that in the Sinai Peninsula today? No, because those places are only modern. We're talking about the original place. Where is this partition? Where is this partition that's forbidden? Okay. Why do we have a partition here, the same root as the stone? Hijr. There's a barzakh between. I'm going to get to the barzakh. That's going to be very interesting to talk about. Forbidden, partitioning, rocky tract. Okay, this is where Thamud. We can't find where Thamud is. They tell us it's Petra and Madain Saleh. Nothing could be further from the truth. Thamud is one of the most powerful civilizations that's ever existed. Okay, look at this. Iron. I told you iron is mentioned in the Quran. Okay, why is it in the same root as limits of Allah, opposition? Okay, iron is incredibly important because iron has a celestial origin. Officially, iron comes from the heavens. These were called houses of God, Beitels, Beitelis. You see, there's a temple here. In the middle, there's a giant black stone. Parts of meteorites, okay? Iron. Astronomical, extraterrestrial, heavenly iron fell to earth. They made these objects of worship. They carved them into cult images, okay? And this is in the story of Bethel, house of God, Beit Allah, okay? Where Jacob has a vision of Jacob's ladder. And he says, surely the Lord is in this place. I was not aware of it. How awesome is this place? There is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head, and he set up a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, Beit Allah. Okay? A similar practice survives today with the Ka'ba's black stone, which was sacred to the polytheists before Islam. Okay? In ancient Greek religion and mythology, the term was specifically applied to the navel of the worlds. Bethel, Beitelis, again, black. Beitelis of Aphrodite, black. They use these stones for their gods. But it comes from the one God. Okay? Seems to have been a conical meteorite. Okay? Then look, we have all these related terms. We have an Asherah pole, or tree, that they worshipped. They have elevated platforms, Beit Allah, Bethel, the Benben stone of the pyramids, the black stone venerated at the Kaaba, ceremonial pole, the high place, raised place of worship, the lingam stone, which I talked about in the last part. Why was Jacob pouring oil over this stone? Just like Hindus today, they pour milk on the Shiva lingam, okay, on this black stone. This cannot be a coincidence. And it's not, because I mentioned that magnetite is the black stone. It's just a highly concentrated version of it because there's a mountain of it. And it's the most magnetic of all naturally occurring minerals on Earth. Naturally magnetized pieces of magnetite are called lodestone. In Arabian Nights, that center of the world is called a lodestone mountain, the magnet mountain. It attracts pieces of iron because it's very magnetic. Okay? It actually is one of the main ores for mining iron. It's black. Okay? And this is how ancient peoples first discovered the property of magnetism. Here is magnetite black from Bolivia. And it's so interesting because when it reacts with oxygen, it produces hematite. Hematite? Hemoglobin? This stone we're going to talk about more because it's related to our physiology as well, just like magnetite. These were an early form of magnetic compass. In large enough quantities, you can actually detect this with a magnetometer in aeromagnetic surveys. Okay? Magnetite is sometimes found in beach sand. Notice, black sands are where they're found. Okay? The black stone. In large enough quantities, magnetite can affect compass navigation. That's exactly what happens when you get close to this place. That's why they don't want anybody to go there, among many reasons. There are instances of magnetite with origins in space, coming from meteorites. We're told the black stone of the Kaaba came from the heavens. Right? We also have this occurring in biology as well. Even bacteria use magnetite particles for navigation. Even bacteria. SubhanAllah. The smallest organisms are producing basically magnetic particles to orient themselves in time and space. Okay? Several species of birds are known to incorporate magnetite crystals in the upper beak for magnetoreception, which gives them the ability to sense direction, polarity, and magnitude of the ambient magnetic field. This is how all the creatures migrate. Okay? They all make their hajj, their pilgrimages, if you want to say that. This is part of our natural world. Allah designed a system. This is why Islam is the deen. The deen is the operating system of the worlds. If you go against the deen, it's going to be harmful to you. Okay? So you may as well be in line with the deen. It has nothing to do with rituals that have no meaning anymore. Those rituals have an original meaning, of course. But the deen is something endemic to life, everything in creation. Living organisms can produce magnetite. We produce this in our brains. Okay? And guess what? This iron particle can be found in 3 forms in the brain. Magnetite, this black stone, hemoglobin in our blood, I'm going to mention this as well, and ferritin, a protein which stores iron. And areas of the brain related to motor function generally contain more iron. Okay? Magnetite can be found in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is associated with information processing, specifically learning and memory. Right, so motor function and orientation in space. This is where you find iron and magnetite in the brain. Humans possess a magnetic sense, proposing this allows people to use magnetoreception. Reception, remember? Qibla. Okay? For navigation. This is probably why they give us all these devices. So we don't have this natural sense in us where north is. We should. Okay? Due to its high iron content, magnetite has long been a major source of iron. They actually use this to develop steel for conversion into steel. Audio recordings, interesting because the Qur'an is an audio recording as well. We're using magnetic acetate tapes developed since the 1930s to record audio. It uses this material, magnetic tapes. We have also the Haber process for nitrogen fixation, which all of our crops are used for fertilizer. 2.3% of the world's energy budget is made possible by these magnetite-derived catalysts. Magnetite nanoparticles are used for water purification. Imagine how pure that water must be, because all the magnetism is there, all the magnetite is there. That will be the real Zamzam water, the really pure stuff, because it's just undoctored, it's unadulterated whatsoever. We use these in ferrofluids today for magnetic resonance imaging as well. These same materials. Notice they're all black. They're like shades of black. This one, though, when it oxidizes, it can become red. Okay? And this one is so interesting because it's electrically conductive. Okay? Wherever there's a magnetic field, there's an electric field as well. They used to call this iron rose. Okay? And I'm going to get into what iron rose is in a bit as well. So it's actually harder than pure iron. Hematite is harder than pure iron. This is an oxide formed from magnetite. Okay? And you can typically find it in hot springs, right? Again, springs keeps coming up with this topic. The name derives from blood, the word for blood in Greek. And basically, they really valued this as well for healing. They also would use this for arts. For example, this material called ochre is a powder. It's a natural clay earth pigment. Notice, it's made of clay. And it's a mixture of ferric oxide that comes from this hematite crystal. This ochre is in every color of all the colors humanity has been diversified by Allah in. Okay? So this hematite, which is named after blood, we have iron in our blood, can be used to make this powder, this pigment, for pretty much every skin color of humanity. I find that very interesting because we're told Adam is made from clay. Okay? And that clay contains likely deposits of iron. So when we look at iron meteorites, okay, we see that natural hematite is very magnetic. It will be picked up by a neodymium magnet. Okay, look at it as well. Like we have hexagonal crystals, right? Doesn't this look like a cube shape as well? Remember how I said that there's 6 mountain ranges around the central mountain in Hindu cosmology? And when you look at this iron rose as well, okay, this is going to be very interesting now when you look at what iron rose means. So we have also stories regarding hematite as an important ore of iron throughout history. It was used as a mirror. A black mirror, as well as pigments adorning tombs. It's associated with blood and magic. A lot of magic actually involves blood. It's also associated with protection, because this blood red pigment of this stone was called iron rose. It was basically considered to be they used to make a protective cloak. Okay, Allah talks about clothing in an interesting way, where He says the best clothing is the clothing of taqwa, and He says clothing in there. It's some kind of a clothing. You could argue many different things. Perhaps our electromagnetic field that we have, our torus field around our bodies, is related to this, to protect us from other electromagnetic beings that try to infiltrate our consciousness, okay? The jinn. But anyway, this was considered to be an early form of mirror, thanks to its reflective sheen. And notice, it would likely be a black mirror, if not silver. Black mirror, okay? A lot of magic is done using black mirrors as well. This adorned the tombs of the pharaohs, so clearly Pharaoh has a knowledge of this material. People use it to prevent excessive bleeding and birthing, and also in the battleground as well. People wore them as amulets as well. Now we have, today Jews, they wear this black box on their head as a sort of amulet, as a protection, okay, against curses when they pray. So you see how all of our traditions are basically, their original meaning has been lost. And that's why people have no concept of what they're doing. But look at this. This is one of the most powerful companies in the world, if not the most. It's a multinational investment company and the world's largest asset manager. And what did they decide to call it? They just decided to call it BlackRock. Funny enough, I was mentioning Arabian Nights throughout this. It actually shows you that the software that it keeps track of its investment portfolios is called Aladdin. You remember the genie in the lamp? Okay? It's not a coincidence. All these things come to light. Okay? The founder of this company, one of the founders, Larry Fink, okay? He is CEO, chairman, co-founder. He actually makes a pilgrimage to the Arctic Circle in Southwest Alaska. They call it a pilgrimage. And his company is called BlackRock. Okay? He's not going to Mecca or the Middle East. He's going to Alaska. Which suspiciously, you can see why they named it Alaska, Al-Aqsa, Alaska. Anyway, what we see is that his company is related to Pete Peterson, who founded another company called Blackstone. So you have BlackRock and you have Blackstone. And they're both investment management companies that own lots and lots of property. Okay? So, funny enough, Blackstone was named after the founders because this man, who's the CEO of Blackstone Group, his name is Schwartzman. Schwartz is German for black. And Peter, whose name is twice, Peter Peterson, it means stone. Just like in the first person that discovered magnetism, his name was Petrus Peregrinus, Peter the Pilgrim. Okay, this Pilgrim stone of the Pilgrim. Here we have Peter Peterson, Schwartz, Peter, to have Blackstone. Okay, and they adopted the name BlackRock after this as well. So it's just interesting, even in the world of finance, people understand this reality, this knowledge. So there was a 9th century Islamic tradition, a famous reciter of the Quran called Al-Kisa'i, the Persian reciter of the Quran from Kufa. He said that the Kaaba in Mecca, which the center of the earth is a common epithet among Muslims, he said that Kaaba is located directly beneath the North Star. We're told the North Star by Muslim sailors is the Qibla, and we're told by Al-Kisa'i of Kufa in the Abbasid period that the Kaaba is actually beneath the North Star, directly beneath the North Star. Do you see where this is going? Okay, how much more evidence do we need until we realize what we're told is a lie? They've lied about everything. This is a compass rose, which is also called a wind rose, rose of the winds, or compass star. All of these names are related to each other. We have hematite being called iron rose. We have the Hindu text telling us that this place is an island that is in the shape of a lotus flower, a rose being another type of flower. We have a wind rose and the cardinal directions associated with the winds in the ancient Greek understanding and the Roman understanding. Rose of the winds. We have winds being very prominent in the north, with the the people living beyond the north wind as well. We have also compass star, because the star is Polaris, the Qibla. That's what they called it, the Qibla, Polaris. So this Al-Kisa'i is a very prominent individual in Islamic history. Kufa is a very prominent area in Iraq. Okay, I would suggest the history there is a lie as well, but my point is that this person was a preceptor to the sons of the famous Caliph Harun al-Rashid. Notice, Harun al-Rashid is associated with Arabian Nights as well. And one of the 7 readers of the Quran, one of the 7 canonical readers of the 7 canonical qira'at, authorized editions or versions of the Quranic recitation, was this man, Al-Kisa'i, the man who said that the Kaaba is underneath the North Star in the North Pole. I don't agree that there are 7 versions, but Sunnis do. Sunni Muslims believe that this man, who gives one of the recitations of the 7 qira'at, which apparently are all valid at the same time, said that the Kaaba is underneath the North Star. What we have here, brothers and sisters, is a knowledge we've always understood. We've always felt in us. We've always known to be the case. Something is really important about this symbolism. Okay, when you look at live streams of Mecca today, what do you think is this representing? What does this represent? Did you know that the ancient Chinese and Greeks would face north before commencing their prayers? Muslims face a Qibla, right? What is the Qibla now? What do you think the Qibla is? We have many legends of Mount Meru, Marwa. They claim to be a mountain composed of black magnetite stone. Magnetite stone, Rupus nigra, surrounded by 4 rivers. There's 4 rivers mentioned in the Quran. They're unlike any rivers we've ever seen. Okay? Just go to chapter 47. You'll find what those rivers are. Many sacred centers are the center of the world. It's the center city. Beijing is actually known as the pivot of the 4 quarters. 4 quarters, like a cube shape, like a square. The Garden of Eden has 4 streams. The most sacred city of Beijing is called Forbidden City. In chapter 21 of the Quran, there's a city that Allah has placed the haram on that city, that they will ever return. Haram. Okay, I'm not saying it means forbidden. I'm just showing you the connections, that people understand this Islamic concept from the Quran across all cultures. Okay, this is why it's the natural disposition, because it's part of everyone's history. It's part of everyone's reality. Again, the navel of the worlds, the pole star, the Lord of the Center, the navel of the world. In Easter Island, even the Pacific Islanders know the navel of the world. Okay? The only and one true center point of all creation can only be the navel of both the heavens and the earth, undeniably the North Pole. And what we have now are these symbolic facsimiles. That's a perfect way to describe it. That turn the earth into a giant tilting sphere spun around the sun, effectively nullifying the North Pole, so the minds of the masses have no clue what's the true natural sacred center of the universe: heaven, earth, and hell. Okay? There is so much here. So much here. We're going to get into that next part, which is going to be very exciting. And we're going to try to actually reconstruct what we expect to find up there. Okay? Based on the Quran. And look forward to that. In Russia, we actually see Russian officials call the Arctic Circle, as Russia's Mecca. Okay? They use this terminology for a specific purpose. Okay? So, Rogozin, right? Rogozin is a Russian outspoken nationalist, hawkish about claims, Russian claims in the Arctic. Okay? Apparently there's a big posturing, political posturing about the Arctic Circle, even though there's apparently nothing up there. It's not even land, it's just ice. But no, Rogozin, he says the Arctic is a Russian Mecca. Not because it should be a site for pilgrimage, because it's central to Russian geopolitics. I would argue it's central to Russian geopolitics, like everyone else's geopolitics, because the people that are keeping you from going there are all colluding with each other. You remember the Yahud and the Nasara in the Quran? They are allies of each other. Gog and Magog, they are allies of each other against the believers. Okay? They don't want us to come back to the site of pilgrimage because they are mocking us every way they can. They show us these fake CGI photos of the planet, the wandering star Saturn, and they just have to rub it in our faces that the North Pole is hexagonal. Why do they do this? Why do they have a black dot in the center, or in the center of a hexagonal North Pole of Saturn? Okay? They take pride in this because they know the real place and they're just making it alien to us. They're putting it outside of even our planet, apparently. Okay? All of this is all not a coincidence. Okay? The way that they have designed the illusion. So one of the interesting verses I'm going to end this video on, this part, is from chapter 55, verse 33. Ya ma'shar al-jinn wal-ins. O assembly of jinn and men. This is who's being addressed. The worlds. Okay? If you are able to pass beyond the aqtar of the heavens and the earth, pass. You cannot pass except by authority. So which favors of your Lord will you both deny? Sent upon you both is a flame from fire and copper. This word they have translated as smoke, but it's really copper. The reason why it's copper is because if you go to what copper means in Arabic, this is what you get. Nuhas. Nuhas. Smoke is dukhan. There's chapter 44 is called dukhan, but smoke, or rather copper, is nuhas. And just to echo it even more, aqtar is actually related to qitr, which is used in the story of Dhul Qarnayn and the story of Sulaiman regarding molten copper. Okay? These are the sides of the earth. These are the edges of the earth. Okay? So let me ask you this question. Where do we observe this? Do we have any hint of a flame, which is really not a flame, it's something more profound than that, shu'adh of nar, fire, and copper? Where do we see copper and fire, any trace of it in the worlds regarding the heavens and the earth? Take a wild guess. What if I told you we've seen it so many times and we've never thought about what this place, what this phenomenon actually represents? Where it's coming from? Have you ever, let me actually ask you this, what color do you think this fire is? Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen what we call the aurora borealis? The northern lights. Okay? It even has the words in there. The aura. What color do you think fire, what kind of fire burns when you have copper metal? Green? You will be sent a flame of fire and a copper? Is that not what we observe coming from the North Pole? Officially, they tell us this is because there's a lot of oxygen in the atmosphere or something, and there's some plasma discharge. This is plasma. Fire, when you start a fire, that's the fourth state of matter. It's plasma, exactly like the Northern Lights. Can you imagine what the actual origin of this phenomenon looks like? Can you imagine the beauty of it? Overwhelming, energetic beauty. Because we're just seeing the tail end of it. If you go north enough, we're seeing the last part of it, traces of it. But can you imagine its fountainhead? This is why we have to do this kind of work, because the stories of our messengers in the Quran are related to it. Ibrahim was shown a malakut of the heavens and the earth. So he would be of the certain ones, because there would be undeniable proof that this is God's kingdom. Okay? When covered him the night, he saw a star, a wandering star. He saw a moon, he saw a sun. Where did this happen? Where did this story happen? Where is this malakut, the heavens and the earth? Well, malakut is not simply a mulk, it's not just a kingdom. It's the world of God's kingdom on earth. You know in the Bible how it says, as is in heaven, so will it be on earth. God's kingdom on earth. Heaven is a place on earth. The Quran speaks of malakut as-samawat al-ard, kingdom of the heaven, where the heavenly kingdom represents God's ultimate authority. This is a higher plane than what we're used to. It's a high place. The world of sovereignty, not just the world of dominion. We have all kinds of dominions in this world. Okay? But Allah's sovereignty that presides over jinn and humans. This is where revelation originates. Revelation comes down. We know that the revelation comes down. Anzala al-Qur'an. Okay? It's an intelligible, everlasting world over which God presides. It's not just delusion. This is according to Al-Ghazali. Don't take my word for it. He talks about this. Okay? It's a shadow. What we see in the world is a shadow of this haq world, which is malakut. Okay? This is actually intermediate sphere, or barzakh, where the malakut reside, the angels and the post-mortem souls of humans. Allah says He takes our souls by night. He takes our souls in our dreams. Manam. It's in the Quran. He takes our souls in our dreams. Where does He take them? The barzakh. The post-mortem. Death is analogous to sleep. Sleep is a temporary death. Okay? The souls are taken to this place. That's where things can manifest so easily. Okay? It's a blessed land. A literally blessed land. Okay? Some Shia authors also refer to alam al-mithal. Alam al-mithal, the world of imagination. Okay? The imaginal realm. World of pure imagination. Okay? It's a continent named Hurqalya. Hurqalya. This is basically Islamic Hyperborea. It's supposed to lie beyond Mount Qaf, the border of the known world, and is identical with the barzakh in Sheikh Ahmad's cosmological system. Okay, he's a Shia scholar. During sleep, the soul is supposed to visit the imaginal realm in dreams. When you look at Mount Qaf, this is so profound because everything comes full circle when you have the truth. Qaf is the name of chapter 50 of the Quran, Surah 50. Mount Qaf is said to be the homeland of the jinn and was made out of shining emeralds, just like that bird in Arabian Nights, just like the color of Jannah, just like the aurora borealis color, copper. It's like you have this green color coming back all the time. And look what it says. Mount Qaf in Arabic tradition is a mysterious mountain renowned as the farthest point of the earth, owing to its location at the far side of the cosmic ocean encircling the earth. Because of its remoteness, like Friedrich Nietzsche said, our remote land, our remote homeland, the North Pole is sometimes identified with this mountain. According to Hatem Ta'i's account, the Qaf mountains were said to be composed of green emerald, peridot, or chrysolite, whose reflection gave a greenish tint to the sky. Is that what we're seeing here? The reflection of this mountain? Is it that dazzling? It is regarded as the home of the jinn race and the place beyond which the unseen begins. Al-Ghaib. In Arabic literature, Qaf was the loftiest of the mountain ranges created by Allah to support the earth, and was the parent of all other earthly mountains, to which it was linked by subterranean ranges. The range is separated from the world of men by the oceans that surround the known world. Qaf, as the primeval mountain, came to symbolize the cosmic mountain where the natural and supernatural met, and the link between the terrestrial and celestial worlds was established. Emerald made cities. Now you see why the Wizard of Oz has an emerald city. Okay? Al-Qazwini, he calls it the wonders of creation, the marvels of things created and miraculous aspects of things. According to certain authors, Jabal Qaf in Muslim cosmology is a version of Rupes Nigra, a mountain whose ascent, such as Dante's Mountain of Purgatory, represents the pilgrim's progress through the spiritual states. It's referenced frequently in 1001 Nights as a home of the jinn. If there's any doubt what we're talking about here, if there's any doubt, just take some time to digest this. This is a lot of information, but this is nothing compared to the other parts that are coming, inshallah. So take some time to digest this, because there's a lot here, and it's all so interconnected that it cannot be a coincidence. And with that, I'm going to end the part 3. I hope you enjoyed this video. May Allah bless you. May Allah guide us all. And peace.